Thank you very much, Jordan. Appreciate it. And he's right. We're talking about Pillars of Eternity. I've got Jorge and Rose here to show us and talk about the game. Thanks for joining us. So welcome to PAX Prime 2014. It's day one, folks, so we still have 3 more days after today. A lot of content for you. But Pillars of Eternity. Jorge, first off, thanks for joining us. And tell us a little bit about the game. I know some folks got to see it at Gamescom, but now at PAX, we can show it off.
Pillars of Eternity is a project that was kickstarted actually about 2 years ago. And it is a spiritual successor to what we call the Infinity Engine games. They were really popular role-playing games from the early 2000s and late 1999s. Like Baldur's Gate and Planescape Torment or Icewind Dale. At Obsidian Entertainment, there's the legacy of Black Isle, the developer of those games originally, is very much alive. So we really wanted to bring that back at some point. And the reception from the public was fantastic. They really wanted to see this. So here we are, 2 years afterwards, with something on our hands.
And I mean, that's great because, of course, you have the story of getting the community backing and the support, which really tells me, hey, people are they're rediscovering this genre, and many people that played it when they were younger, now they might be a little older, or new gamers discovering. It's like cool that this is something that gamers want to have. So
correct.
We get to see a little bit of the game, right? Can you tell us what we're going to be checking out here?
For sure, yeah. Right now we are going to see the backer beta. This is actually live currently for all of our backers. They have a chance to participate in the development of the project, not only in our forums by giving direct feedback and by having supported the development of the product also, but by being able to look at an early version of the game and then also contribute their own feedback to that as we keep polishing in this last phase of the project. So right now what Rose is going to be playing is that version of the game, the backer beta. First we will start with a character creation. And here is where we create a character for the leadership of the party that it will go through the adventure that we're going to see ahead of us. And in this case, Rose is making a fire godlike female human character. We have a lot of different classes that we can also choose from and different races as well. There's a big emphasis in having a wide variety of characters that you can create so that you develop a sense of I own this character. I can put my touch in this person.
And I mean, actually, with already the customization level that we've seen, like this is actually something that was missing from some of the older games, right? You chose maybe like a class or like, but it wasn't quite drilled down as much as it appears to be here.
There's definitely a lot of customizability in the older games, but in here I think we have a really wide range. There's certainly a sense of wanting to make sure that the original spirit carries forth, so there will be a lot of things that are somewhat similar, right? We still have elves or dwarves or whatnot, but there's certainly new races and new classes, and there's always a slight spin on it that we hope not only is thematically appropriate, but also carries on in the mechanics of the game itself. So right now, Rose is making the druid that we were speaking about. She already chose some spells and distributed the stats. The stats being the things that define your character, like how strong they are or how perceptive they are. These things will apply both to combat, of course. This is a game that really emphasizes that, but also in dialogue and in the way in which you deal with the challenges the world poses for you. One of the main Pillars of Eternity, it is to have that ability to kind of craft your own story and how you deal with it, and the way that your character is built reflects very much so, not only in the combat but also in how you can resolve the problems of the world ahead of you.
Sure. So I mean, really depending on how a player sort of decides to play, because a lot of people have a very, I like to be the mage and I like to, have this background for it, but it sounds like it gives them a little bit more flexibility as far as even the story, and might change the way that the story would unfold as a result of what I chose early on.
Correct. Yeah, and Obsidian is certainly well known, I think, for having an emphasis in good storytelling and caring a lot about having very memorable characters, and also about the reactivity of that world, about making you feel like you own, in a sense, that story. So it's very important for us to be able to let you craft your character, and also how the repercussions of that character's actions in the world are going to pan out, right?
Sure.
Right now we just arrived at the village of Derford. This is a village in our world map, which is situated at a frontier between two distinctive regions. And one of our emphasis also has been to define a history for this world, to give very specific characteristics to the people that inhabit different areas, so that we can create a world that feels very grand and compelling, that you want to actually like adventure into and explore, right? Just by the very nature of the world. So as you can tell, there's a lot of detail put into the backgrounds and the environments.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the things I noticed, just in checking out the game since the Kickstarter is there's one in particular, there's an image that just sticks out to me, and you just sort of see the party and entering into this like just massive cavern that has like almost a little pylon in the middle. And I mean, the artwork's incredible. It looks amazing. It's a combination of sort of 2D, 3D in a way, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, the environments are actually rendered in 2D, and that allows us to have a lot of like depth and detail. But we also have 3D elements in the game that will allow us to play with that and give a sense of actual like depth, right? For example, water can rise and lower, and there will be even 3D lighting also. Rose just got a quest from one of the local inhabitants of the village, in which an ogre has been stealing and raiding his farm. He's got pigs, right? So obviously, he doesn't really want to deal with it. He's just a farmer, and in the village, they are not really very comfortable dealing with the ogre, because ogres in Pillars of Eternity world are really strong and also very intelligent. So sends you off to go to the area of Deerford Crossing, which will be a wilderness area, a very wide wilderness area that you can explore. In this case, we're going to try to go pretty much head on onto where the ogre location is, and then we'll deal with them right there, and we can see a little bit of how the combat plays out too. Simply because exploration would take a long time.
Right, of course. So let's talk a little bit about the combat. You've already mentioned some of the games that you have sort of like have inspired this game, and you sort of wish to carry on that legacy. Are we going to be experiencing similar mechanics as far as what we might already be used to, or what does Pillars of Eternity introduce that we might be interested in?
Right, that's a good point. There's that sense of bringing back the old Dungeons and Dragons feel and whatnot is very much something that our backers wanted to preserve, right? They have that sense of really, I think, worthwhile nostalgia to bring that back. So there is very much the mechanics of D&D.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it. This is perfect, right? Because we're definitely seeing it.
But at the same time, there are very significant variations as well that I think emphasize player choice. So there are some areas in which we try to massage the systems so that everything that you do actually has an actual consequence. So, for example, choices like, hey, you know what, having a plate mail armor is always super awesome. Well, in this particular game, in Pillars of Eternity, at times you may want to choose something else because of the type of creatures or weapons that you would be going against, or other types of abilities. So the idea is to give you a much wider choice. In this particular case, we have a fighter going right in front of the fight. That's a very common role, for example, right? It would be a sort of tank role, right? And then we have a mage, so we've always seen those things. Those are pretty standard. But at the same time, we have introduced other new classes, for example, chanters, right? Chanters are characters that constantly sing in the background. It's a little bit like a bard, but you can create different tunes that are constantly giving your party bonuses depending on the phrases that are being said. So that's a little twist on what normally is a variation of a wizard of sorts.
Sure. So I caught a couple of questions here in chat. Someone was wondering, do you guys have any idea yet about how many hours someone could put into? Because obviously with the customization, you're talking about the ability to replay many times.
Sure.
But any idea? I know it's going to be a tough question to answer.
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell. Obviously, we have our barometer for that. We're trying to aim at least for, these games were really lengthy back in the day. All the IA games were really lengthy, and we're trying to make sure that there's a lot of content that our backers can experience and enjoy. So there's certainly anywhere between 40 to 70 hours of gameplay. That would be an easy estimate. But it also depends on how much time you're investing on exploring the world, talking to all the characters, discovering quests. So there's a lot of side content that you can also delve into if you decide to expand your experience. So it will be, I think, a very lengthy game. I don't think anybody will be disappointed by the amount of content that we have here.
Another question that came in is, what can you tell me, or what would you say to me if I was a fan of one of these older games and I wanted to get back into it? Like, what would be the thing that you think would draw folks back into it the most?
Well, for one is there's nothing like it, almost nothing like it since then, and the experience of controlling your party, of having that sense of wonder and adventure where you create your own character and can go into a world that very much changes according to what you want. And it's not a single player person game where it's just you have a whole range of options, right? That has also been massaged with new features that we have learned how to develop better over time in these past 10 years, right? I think that would be very much a call that people would answer if they remember, hey, I had such a good experience then. But if you look at those games now, even though the writing is fantastic and the systems are really good, things start to look a little dated. So we're bringing that back, but with a much more modern flair and touch.
Another question came in, said, we see 5 party members. Is that max? Will you be able to add more?
Yeah, we will be able actually to have up to 6 characters.
Okay.
Right now we have 5, counting the main player. Now, in this party, you have somewhat like generic characters, but in the final game, there's all sorts of companions that can journey with you. They have their own stories and they have their own stake in the world, right? But you can also choose to just create whatever you want through a feature that's available in our inns, where you can recruit other characters. Like if you don't like a particular character, you can always just make your own and make a party of whatever it is that suits your fancy.
And then how do the characters work? Are they persistent? Like, could I say, I'm not going to use this particular character on this mission because this one might be better, and you kind of filter through that way?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, and something we have run into in other games that we've made. In this particular case, if you decide, hey, this companion is not suitable right now for these quests, you can always dismiss them. They will go back into to your stronghold.
Okay.
They will basically just chill there and wait for you until you call them back. Yeah, they're pretty obedient.
And then how about death? Because obviously that was always something to deal with. Whether it be spells or whether I have to go back, like how significant is your death in this game?
Sure. In this particular game, the death has been softened a little bit. Now we have difficulty options by which you can have like a 1 death per game, and then you're done. So there's a very hardcore level if you choose to.
Okay.
But on the other hand, whenever your party, whenever your characters die, instead of just being gone, as long as your party survives the encounter, they will stand up and come back into the fray, but they will be maimed. So at that point, they will have some permanent form of handicap that you have to address by, for example, resting. This is something that Rose will soon get to, because we're approaching actually where Korgrak hangs out, the ogre. And before getting to him, he's a tough character, so we're probably going to get some...
might be a couple of losses, casualties here.
And look at the resting mechanic.
I have to believe that the person who asked that was just hoping that you were going to say there is like a very one life hardcore type.
Oh, yeah.
They will play it. And because I know there's a lot of folks that that take a lot of pride in being able to play that way. And that's great. I'm not one of those guys, Jorge, unfortunately.
It will be very tough, especially when the game can be so immersive.
Oh, yeah.
It's very difficult. But there's several other modes of difficulty, too. So it's not like it is just either you die and then you're done, or it's very easy. They're very, very nuanced difficulty system.
So
actually.
This definitely looks like a place that a lot of people might have died. And,
it looks where you're going to find a boss, and there he comes. So Korgrak will actually use a very strong melee. So I think what Rose is going to try to do is to keep him in place. Now you can see a lot of dialogue options. So that means that you can deal with Korgrak also in a way that is not only violent.
Sure.
You can also talk your way out. You can even befriend them. There's different factions in the game, and depending on how you're dealing with them, that will have an effect on the overall story.
So they do. The decisions that you make early on could affect something that happens hours later in the game or way down the line.
Certainly, yes.
So someone asked about like customization because since you're dealing with sort of 3D models, if I like change well, we just saw someone like take out, move a weapon or put a weapon away or take it back. So will if I put on different armor, my character will reflect those changes in the game.
Certainly, yeah.
Awesome.
And we will also, there's also a feature where it's like alternate weapon set, so you can choose weapons to switch to while you're in combat, and you will see that the character switch those weapons, they animate the weapons. So the fighter, for example, is using right now a crossbow, and he has an animation where he's like reloading the crossbow, right? So almost anything that you can wear will have a different look to it, a different feel to it.
Okay. This is great. We really appreciate you coming out and showing us. We just got a tease of the Ogre, so you're going to have to, of course, play. And if you're already a backer, well, it sounds like you could be at least experiencing what you've got so far.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
You'll be enjoying it right now.
So really quickly, any information for those that aren't backers? They're like, oh, well, when will I get my hands on it?
Well, the game is, we're trying to make it come out in winter, before winter anyway. And it's going to be really good, so keep your eyes open for it.
All right, all right. Jorge, thank you very much.
Marcus.
Really appreciate it.
Man.
Rose, thank you so much for joining us on stage.